Hola, estudiantes. I know you have been waiting for it. We are finally here. The Pretérito versus the Imperfecto. Alright, we're going to start by going over the reasons for using the Pretérito, then we'll go over the Imperfecto, and then we'll kind of take a look at both. Okay, the first one for the Pretérito is a completed action. An example of this would be Yo compré peras a Mariano's. So, I bought pears at Mariano's. This is a completed action. You went there, you bought the pears, it's done and over. Next one would be something that happened at a specific time. An example of this might be Yo fui a Chipotle a las 2. So I went to Chipotle at 2 because you went there at a specific time. Pretérito. Okay, the next one is a specific number of times. Let's stick with our Chipotle theme here. Yo comí Chipotle 5 veces. So I ate Chipotle 5 times because you know exactly how many times you did something. We use the Pretérito. Not only do you use the Pretérito to talk about a specific number of times, but you also use it to talk about a specific duration of time. To continue with our Chipotle again, yo fui a Chipotle por 2 horas, or I went to Chipotle for 2 hours. Because we have a specific duration of time that you were there. Pretérito. Another example of a duration of time. Ella patinó por 30 minutos. Or she skated for 30 minutes. Once again, because we know the exact amount of time, Pretérito. Next, we have a chain or a sequence of events. Here we have a couple examples for you. We'll use this little photo here. Here we can see the man returned home. So, él regresó a casa. Él habló por teléfono. Él le preguntó a su amigo you can at least see the beginning part of that sentence. Él fue al baño. So here we're just using the Pretérito to talk about what happened, so a sequence of events, something in a story. Another example, yo fui al mercado, compré los ingredientes preparé la paella y nosotros comimos. Another sequence of events. I went to the market, bought the ingredients, prepared the paella, and we ate. Next one we have is an action began or ended. So when you're describing the moment that something actually began or ended, you use the Pretérito. So here we could say, empezó a llover, or it began to rain. maybe something else is going on. Maybe the kids were inside, they were playing a game, and then it began to rain and maybe they stopped playing the game. So ellos terminaron el juego. So once again, if something began or something ended, we use the pretérito. And lastly, we use the pretérito to talk about actions that interrupt. An example of an action that interrupted something would be the girl was texting when maybe her mother shouted. Su mamá gritó. Okay, her mother shouting interrupts her texting. So this would be considered an action that interrupts. Common phrase that you'll see when maybe in a story or something like that, when an action is going to interrupt is de repente, all of a sudden. Okay, moving over to the imperfecto. Our first one here, pretty extensive though, descriptive or background details. This can include a lot of things like the time that it was in the past, your age in the past, location, appearance, weather, emotional or a mental state. Okay, to start off with our descriptive or background details, we have time. So if I were talking about something in the past, setting the scene for something, eran las 5 de la tarde. So it was 5 in the afternoon. Maybe I'm setting the scene for something else. I need to talk about how old this girl was. Remember, we use with tener with age. Ella tenía 6 años. So she was 6 years old. Imperfecto again. More imperfecto here if we're talking about the location of something. So let's say la casa estaba en la playa. So the house was on the beach. Describing where something was, we use the imperfecto. Next thing, we use the imperfecto to describe appearance. So here's a little baby picture of me. Yes, that is really me from when I was little. Yo era baja y tenía pelo castaño. So I was short and I had dark hair. Next one we have for weather, maybe it was sunny out. Maybe you're setting the scene for an awesome story. Hacía sol or hacía buen tiempo. So once again we have the imperfecto here. And the last descriptive or background detail, maybe we're talking about emotion. In this picture, I look pretty tired. So yo estaba cansada y triste. Maybe I was a little sad too. So there you have the imperfecto with descriptive or background details. Next reason for using the imperfecto, we have repeated or habitual actions. So let's say that my family used to go to the beach all the time. Okay, so mi familia iba a la playa. Maybe we went every summer. Cada verano. So we went every single summer. Okay, let's say that we jugábamos, we played en el agua todos los días. So we played in the water every day. This is considered a repeated or a habitual action because this is something that happened every single summer or every day. The next one is was or were and then the ing. So this is to talk about something that you were doing or something something that someone else was doing in the past. Now you have already learned this structure. It's called the imperfect progressive. Remember, this is your form of a star in the imperfect, plus the other verb in the ing form, so the ando or the yendo. So this is just reiterating the fact that you use the imperfecto with this one. So if we were trying to describe what was happening in this picture, you see this little kid here? Él estaba durmiendo. Or él estaba escribiendo. So he was sleeping and he was drawing. Oops, writing. Sorry, because this little girl here in the picture, if I were trying to describe in la foto, so in the picture, ella estaba dibujando. So she was drawing. Another example of the imperfect progressive. Next one for the imperfecto, to express what used to happen. Here's a photo that could explain this one. Here you can see me. Yep, that is really me when I was little. And I, as a kid, I always used to skate. So I could say yo patinaba. So this is something that I used to do. I skated. I also, let's see, yo iba al parque. Another thing I used to do as a kid. Comía mucho. I used to eat a lot. So these are all things that I used to do. Some expressions that you've used before or seen, de niño or de niña, to talk about what you used to do as a kid, or cuando era niño or niña. These are some common things that you'll hear when you're talking about what you used to do or what someone else used to do. Next one is simultaneously occurring actions. Okay, to talk about two things that were happening at once or simultaneously occurring actions in the past, we're going to go back to these children here, okay? And now that I'm looking at it, I think this is actually a girl. So, la chica dormía, so the girl slept, the girl was sleeping, while, mientras, talk about the boy now, el chico escribía. Okay, so the girl slept while the boy wrote, okay, or the girl was sleeping while the boy was writing. These two things are happening at the same time, so we are using the imperfecto. Please notice this word here, mientras, very common thing that you'll see when we're using the imperfecto. Another way to express this exact same thing, you could say la chica estaba durmiendo mientras el chico estaba escribiendo. They both mean that the girl was sleeping while the boy was writing. However, the imperfect progressive is used here just to emphasize that that was what was happening. But they really mean the same thing. Okay, to get to our last part here, we have actions that get interrupted. Earlier, when we were talking about the reasons for using the pretérito, we talked about actions that interrupt, okay? For the imperfecto, we're talking about actions that get interrupted. These seem very similar and they actually go hand in hand. So you're going to see these two together. So this is what I was talking about when we talked about using the pretérito and the imperfecto together. So here you can already see the preterite part of this sentence, cuando su mamá gritó, or when her mother shouted. Okay, remember we're talking about actions that get interrupted. So the action that interrupted was the pretérito, the gritó. However, what was going on, what was happening while the shouting happened. Okay, so what was going on then? La chica estaba texteando. So the girl was texting. Or we could just say la chica texteaba. The girl was texting. The girl texted when her mother shouted. So please notice here we're using the imperfecto, right? Estaba texteando or texteaba, because this is something that was going on, and then that action got interrupted by the pretérito action. So it can be a little complicated here, but when there's something that's going on and then something else happens, remember you're going to have two different conjugations in here. One's going to be the imperfecto and one's going to be the pretérito. Okay, gracias. Thank you so much for joining us for the pretérito versus the imperfecto. I hope this cleared up maybe some of the misconceptions or some of the confusion that you had now that you had already learned both of these verb tenses. Remember to ask if you need some additional help with this. We will be practicing a ton. Adios.